Hello everyone and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel, your smartest way to buy, sell, and or invest across the entire Southwest Florida region. I'm your host, Adam Hancock, once again. And today's video was kind of inspired by a group of people, or like a camp, if you will, that are pretty far, I would say, down the line that, in Florida from 2020 to 2024, so much has happened with, you had COVID, obviously, you have this surplus of unusual migration to the state. It's not your typical stuff, pricing that comes with that. The weather, changes recently, or volatility rather, that, things aren't the same anymore. This isn't the Florida that I wanted. This isn't the Florida that I dreamt of. And I want to kind of devil's advocate a few different thoughts today that, in my opinion, because these categories physically can't materially change because of the infrastructure, the foundation, just what they are, that in January 2025, Florida is probably still the best mousetrap when it comes to relocation, coming down for sure, even coming from the West Coast, I would argue, especially if you're over 40 years old, not just now, but long into the future. So that's what we're gonna do. I hope you enjoy the take. I wanted to get out. I never do this anymore. I need to do it more. It's beautiful out here. I wanted to get outside and do this, so I hope that you like it, and if you do, please make sure you also sign up for the 30-day email. One email report that I handwrite the last day of every single month. It's the only email I send all month, and it's a great way to get everything going on in Southwest Florida, especially the Sarasota greater region. So without further ado, let's hop in. Okay, my thought number one is simply that people are not going to stop turning 50 years old. And yes, although net migration numbers were really artificially skewed over the last few years due to, work from home policies, political unrest, whatever may have been going on at the time. It still remains that the heavy lion's share of people relocating to the state of Florida is due to life change, life stage, transition years kind of thing. And, kids are leaving the house and the major commuting work time is behind you. You're looking for something different. And in that world, Florida offers a very pleasant, but more importantly, a variety-based solution to satiate that need, unlike most of the other 49 states around the country. Okay, thought number two. It will not stop being cold as shit in many other places around the United States, not called Florida. I mean, for instance, we are in a polar vortex of sorts when I'm filming this video, and it's a brisk 56 degrees in Sarasota right now, on the wonderful Lido Beach. And I mean, in many places, people can't even leave their homes at the moment. And yeah, I mean, there's a extremely real threat that is not fun of hurricanes if you're gonna be in the Sunshine State. But there's also 4-month winters in many places. Texas has a lot of the fiscal benefits of Florida, but there's no compelling coastline and way more seasonality. I mean, full-on snows in Dallas, Texas. You have fires to the west, landslides in the Carolinas. So I think it's a little bit of a realistic pick your poison situation, in my opinion. I've been in Florida most of my life. I've a lot of different parts of it and a little bit, Carolinas and stuff like that. But when I speak to people that spent 30 years of winters commuting to work and running their businesses and, managing their family life in like a New Jersey, and they get down here, I mean, it's a monumental change, a hard to describe change of like when you just walk outside and you experience this weather. Especially in a way, I mean, you think about that when people not just relocate and be like, okay, I have all that and now I don't have this, but they're typically doing it when they're completely changing their life. So it's not even like they're coming to Florida and working. They get a full lifestyle change, which just means you have functional use in a very fun way of the 300 plus days of sunshine. But it's hard to articulate the quality of life. It's the way people walk around the world. It's like when you're having that good day, and the way you treat everybody else, and it just ripples and ripples and ripples, that is not nothing. Okay, thought number three for this video is that I think Florida just simply wins out in the overall conversation of net migration. If you're sitting in Massachusetts, for instance, and you're like, I need a change, well, some of the things you might want to change are you might want it a little warmer, you probably want some coastline access, maybe there's a political thing, maybe there's an education thing with aligning to your values, whatever it may be. It's a pretty cliche list, right? And then you say, okay, I'm gonna write down all the physical options I could do to satiate these needs on a notepad. Well, it's kind of a small list. You're probably throwing Arizona in there, especially if you're from the West. Texas is for sure on there, Carolinas, probably parts of Georgia, maybe Nashville, Tennessee, Florida. obviously a pretty small amount of choices. And then you start to break them down and you're like, okay, what am I working with here? Well, Arizona, suburban, I know a lot of people enjoy it, but, really different aesthetic. Obviously problematic from a coastline access thing, right? And if you're from the East Coast or something, going that direction might be awkward versus the others. Texas is always number 1 and 2 with Florida as far as United States actual net migration. But you start to look at it and you're like, okay, and it's tricky because it's a very, very big area, obviously. But you say, okay, Houston. I don't think Houston compellingly satiates a coastline thing. Yes, it is that of Texas, but if you've ever been to a Florida beach, I mean, it's tough, right? And then it's a very large area too. So you have the Woodlands up here, you have Galveston down here. So typically people live in a corner, and it's probably not worth with the congestion and all that to travel to the other corner. I've never talked to one person that intentionally moved to Houston for the lifestyle necessarily. Austin's cool. It is probably like the Tampa of Texas, and it's condensed, so it's easy to access kind of everywhere there, but it's nowhere near the water. It's also a little bit of a peacock of a lifestyle, so in my experience, either for you or it's not. It's a binary thing. Dallas, nowhere near the water, so half of that list is out just based on you being in Texas versus not. And I could see, the median age of like a 37, 38 family being like, I just can't go to the beach every day. I'm looking for something different. It's not functional to me right now. I could see that. But if you don't have that to deal with, then how's that work, Carolina is probably your closest one. I won't get crazy here, but just giving a couple examples. You have, it's quite lovely too. Charleston, you have Wilmington, but a lot more seasonality there and just not a lot of options. I mean, that's a small pot. As you go up, you cross from South Carolina to North Carolina without even realizing you're doing it. So if you don't like one of those couple options, there aren't others. Nashville, Tennessee, you kind of get the point here. But what I would argue, or what I want to drive home, is that I don't think anywhere does what Florida does, in that almost the amount of places throughout the state that are different from each other, that are not only not that far from each other, but all solve the same problems, right? You could go to multiple places within the state and get everything on that list I described, which gives you variety, which gives you abundance, which for the most part always benefits a buyer. Like I'm standing in Sarasota right now. You could live on Lido or Siesta Key. Venice is one of the most affordable Gulf Coast islands that exists. You could do all that, right? But you could also live in Lakewood Ranch, Welland Park. You have suburbs that are 9 miles away that are master planned. And so you have all that, right? Tampa's the big city version of where I'm standing here. So you could, if you need more economics or industry, but want, Clearwater Beach and Pasta Grill and all that, you have that an hour from here. Major airport right there. Naples is a different version of Sarasota, so you have another option you could choose. And all of that's very close, right? But then you go to the Atlantic coast, very, very long. You go all the way up and you have St. Augustine, the oldest inhabited city, that sits next to Jacksonville, one of the biggest cities in the contiguous United States. You go down, you have Melbourne, you have Vero Beach, you have Deerfield Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, obviously. You go out to the Keys. So you got all of that up and down that you could choose from, all different from each other. Some offer a little bit more like kind of job support. Some are just straight retirement. Some are smaller than the others. The Atlantic is different than the Gulf as far as beach waters. And then you have all the panhandle, So I went to school in Pensacola. I lived in Gulf Breeze. I really, really like it. If it wasn't for maybe like the more threat of hurricanes, I might have ended up back there. But that's like a whole different bird when it comes to Florida. I mean, that's the weather that nowhere else in Florida has. It's just different. But emerald green water, you have Seaside and all that, 30A district, which is like, the Truman Show was filmed in Seaside. It literally looks like that. It's just it's awesome. But all that to say that when I'm making an argument for like what is valuable, what's important, I want variety, because variety lets you hedge your bets. Nothing's perfect. But if I have 8 options versus 2, then I got a lot better shot of solving a lot more people's needs in a compelling way than anywhere else. And that is something that, because of how the size of them, how they are built, and where they are located, Florida can solve in a way that others just can't. And number 4 is all coastlines are not equal. And I'll speak with a little bit more brevity here because I cannibalized this a little bit in the last point. But again, this is a size issue. You get above the state of Florida, like Jacksonville, Amelia Island, which Amelia Island is pretty sweet, but you cross up and then you're like Tybee Island and Charleston, and you're in Myrtle Beach 1 second, and then before you realize it, you're in Wilmington. These are not expansive areas, especially as the shape of those states when it drifts in. These are like little rectangles, you know, and you keep going north of that, and you're going to be up north. So what's the point of that? But if one of those doesn't work for you, where else do you go from there? Not everyone's going to love where I'm standing here today, whether it's not just Sarasota, but it could be the price or whatever it may be. But the cool thing is there's many other options when it comes to style, price, all the rest of the housing criteria, location, all of it. And I have found that to be very important. I would throw in on top of that utilization, functionality. You know, if you live near a beach in North Carolina, for instance, it's like having a pool in your backyard that you have to cover for 4 or 5 months of the year. You know, it's not what's the point completely, but it's not like everything that would come with not only quality of life, but, you know, cost equations and all that kind of thing if you could use that stuff 300 days of the year. You know, I think today is January 13th maybe when I'm filming this video, and you know, I think I'm already in the 60 degrees right now, so that's interesting. And then, you know, when it just comes to general beaches, if you want to throw quality on that, you know, when I speak about like having a bunch of options that you could pick from in Florida, these aren't random options. You know, we're talking Siesta Key, Clearwater Beach, Longboat Key. These are world-class, I mean, St. Augustine, world-class beaches that people have at their disposal. So overall, I think worth noting. Okay, my fifth and final thought for today's video is that the news just doesn't show everything. You know, it shows the scary, horrific stuff. And, you know, I think we all know that, right? It's like clickbaits, and that's the stuff that works. And a lot of people, I mean, even on YouTube, and the doom and gloom, no one's moving to Florida, this is the worst, you know, kind of the things that made me think about doing a video like this. That's the most popular stuff by far. You know, 10 reasons not to move to this city unless you can deal with, you know, beautiful beaches. I'm not trying to be insensitive to any of that. I get it. I get it as much as anyone else that's lived in Florida their entire life. But what the news doesn't show is, this is important for people to know, because it's like, how are you going to move here and why? And what it doesn't show is the effect on the suburbs, the stuff that's 9 to 15 miles one way from the water. You have Lakewood Ranch. You have Babcock Ranch, which has really been making a name for itself over the last few years. You have Welland Park down in the South Venice. How close these are to the water and how little effect that it had on these master planned suburban areas. And when I look at who's relocating with us, and our major states are New Jersey, New York, we have Canada, Illinois, Washington, D.C., getting a lot more California, Washington State as well, Maryland, you know. 90+% of people don't move here where I'm standing. They look at the thing and say, you know, if I go 9 to 11 miles one way, one, I'm not that far, but also I just get grave benefits when it comes to my house and the cost exchange for square footage and the communal amenities and the schools and the activities and all that kind of thing. They're like, it would be really cool to live on the beach, but most people don't do that. And then because of the nature of, one, relocation and logistics, but also suburbs, you know, I would say over 60% of these same people buy new construction homes. So they get the latest in the building codes. A lot of them get impact windows. Every year it gets smarter, more efficient, all this kind of thing. So they have even less odds of, if it hits them, it will affect them as much as the person that has a home that was built in 1980. So for the most part, the heavy majority of storms are a minor blip on the radar for the majority of people, and then it's business as usual. So I think it's worth getting more content along these lines. And, you know, obviously I own a real estate brokerage. It would be advantageous for me to say like, hey, it's not that bad, guys. But this is true. This is true, because what it's doing is, I think it's affecting what people want to do, what they could and should do with their lives, because of stuff that is more in the clickbait kind of category. So leave that there. And one kind of interesting parting thought on my side is that it's also, if you take like, especially Southwest Florida, it's also really unusual to have the density of new construction-ish master plan based suburbs this close to the coastline. Like if you Google new construction communities in blah, blah, blah state, and you look at how many exist in the state and where they're based, for us to have like a Lakewood Ranch, Florida, a Welland Park in the same city, what eventually is going to be a 3H ranch, all in the Sarasota-Manatee County, that are, if you just look to your left, incredibly hard to get more than 30 minutes one way, and that's just because it's like city roads, from world-class beaches and culture, but be able to come home to a master plan community that's a mini city where you could pick amongst 40 neighborhoods, the oldest house built in 1995. It's crazy. I mean, it's not typical. So it just adds again to that, I'll say it 50 times, that idea that you could go to one place and satiate a lot of different people's needs. And you know, I, being a buyer's advocate, a relocation buyer's advocate on my side, I'm looking for as many hedges that'll give someone incentives, advantages, leverage, and poise. You know, more options in a not real urgent environment allows someone to make a decision that's actually best for them. And then when they get here, they could choose amongst 3 to 4 options on a micro standpoint, and that's only going to benefit someone that's watching this video trying to figure this stuff out. So that is number 5. Give me just a minute and I will wrap up. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's edition. Maybe I'll give you some water here on the outro of the video of the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. My name is Adam Hancock. Once again, I was your host. I hope you enjoyed the take. If you did like this kind of video and you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Got a lot of cool stuff planned for 2025. Getting back into my old school deep dive breakdowns, new construction communities that might be on your radar, all things interesting going on in Sarasota, Tampa, and Naples, and really contextual of like not what it is, but why we're also talking about it. So subscribing is the best way to just simply know what's coming next. Also, that 30-day email I mentioned, one, it's like a manifesto kind of stream of consciousness. I write once a month. It's only email again I send a month. I get a billion emails and I don't like it, so I don't do that to you. But this is just, it's a delivery of something that we don't do. If like this video is long, it's one subject matter. That's a recap of everything we did over the month. It's bullet points at a time. It's very consumable. It also is more real time because I sit down and it's the real time releases. It's what's going on with builders, and it's every 30-day loop. So timing matters more than kind of more evergreen stuff like this. So that's a great thing to do. The description box below has the link. It's kind of hard to find, but you can email us too. And we have relocation guides on the website as well if you're looking for more something like that. And then, of course, if I can help you in the Southwest Florida real estate market at all, please consider reaching out. Wonderful team. I own a real estate brokerage, so we do all residential services, buying, selling. It's not relocation specific. It's regular. But this is kind of where we specialize. We have the highest volume in new construction sales, and probably along with that relocation, we're up there as well. So we have a lot of examples, which gives us a lot of context and a lot of leverage for you. So what people did before you will benefit what you're gonna do that you haven't done yet, basically. You can call, text, email. I think you'll see the difference of how we oriented it if you do that. And if you don't do any of that, I appreciate you watching my content, even for a little bit, and we'll see you on the next one.